So picture this. It's 4th century China,
Okay.
and the local government in this province, Fujian province, they have this official state-sanctioned policy for dealing with a giant man-eating python.
Right, a literal monster.
Exactly. But they don't dispatch an army. They don't, hire a local monster hunter or anything. They literally just feed it a 12-year-old girl every August.
It's a horrifying but incredibly efficient way to keep the paperwork moving without actually addressing the problem.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
I have a whole stack of sources in front of me today, mostly translated text from a 4th century compilation called In Search of the Supernatural.
Written by the historian Ganbao.
Right, Ganbao. And we are pairing his original text with some modern sociological analyses of ancient Chinese bureaucracy. Specifically, we're looking at this story called Li Qi Slays the Snake.
It's a classic.
It is. But
Yeah.
to you listening, I want to establish our ground rules for this dive right up front. Because normally, Ganbao's work is treated as just classic folklore, like spooky caves, mythical beasts, legendary heroes. But we are actively filtering out all that magical fairy tale dressing today. We are stripping away the myth entirely.
Because underneath all that folklore, you are looking at a raw, remarkably cynical historical account of systemic cowardice.
Yeah, exactly.
Ganbao was writing during the Eastern Jin dynasty, which was a period of massive political upheaval, corruption, and instability. So his stories often use these supernatural elements as a thinly veiled critique of very real societal failures.
I mean, it is basically a pitch-black comedy about toxic office culture.
Right.
It's an exploration of what happens when leadership's grand idea of crisis management is literally throwing the lowest-ranking intern directly into the fire, just hoping the flames eventually get full.
Wiping their hands clean of the mess.
Exactly. We are going to look at the ancient anatomy of passing the buck. This is tailored for anyone who has ever worked for a spectacularly incompetent boss.
Which is most people, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. So, okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at the thread itself.
Yeah.
We are in Yongling, which is this mountainous, isolated area down in Fujian province.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a snake. The text describes it as a massive, highly venomous python, like 70 to 80 feet long, with a body as thick as a barrel.
That's a massive animal.
Right. It's blocking the main roads. It's eating all the local livestock. It has already killed several local government officials who, had the misfortune of getting too close.
The creature has basically established absolute dominance over the regional infrastructure.
Yeah.
And in an agrarian, isolated society, blocking the roads means starving the town. So it isn't just a nuisance, it is an existential threat to the local economy and the governance.
But the kicker here is that the snake issues a demand.
Right.
It communicates to the locals, probably through a shaman or a dream. The text leaves that suitably vague. But it wants a very specific tribute.
A quote.
Yes. Every year on August 1st, it demands the delivery of a 12 to 13-year-old girl. If it gets its annual snack, it stays quiet. If it doesn't, it promises to unleash plagues and pestilence on the whole region.
It sets a hard deadline and a recurring quota.
Exactly. And I want you, the listener, to look at this snake not as like a scaly monster in a cave, but as the ultimate untouchable regional bully.
The worst kind of client.
Yes. Think of that massively toxic VIP client that brings in half your company's revenue, or that abusive, terrifying executive that the entire C-suite just quietly tiptoes around.
Right.
The local magistrates and military commanders, they have titles, right? They have authority, they have armed guards. Do they organize a militia to hunt it down? Do they lay a trap? No. They instantly cave. They just agree to the demands.
What's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism at play.
Yeah.
These local officials are suffering from what modern sociologists might call a profound case of bureaucratic Stockholm syndrome.
Wow.
They begin to view the monster as a permanent fixture of their reality, like something that can only be appeased but never actually challenged.
Wait, I have to push back on that a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because Stockholm syndrome implies they actually identify with the captor, right? That they develop some kind of psychological sympathy for it. I don't buy for a second that these magistrates love the snake or feel any affection for it. Aren't they just doing cold, cynical math?
That's a fair point.
Like, they look at the snake, they look at their own bank accounts, and they realize that throwing an intern into the cave is infinitely cheaper and less risky for them personally than, buying a fire extinguisher.
That is a fair distinction, yeah. It is less about sympathy for the beast and more about learned helplessness combined with pure institutional self-preservation.
Right.
During the era this was written, local magistrates were essentially middle managers. They were just trying to survive their tenure without a peasant revolt or a total economic collapse.
Just keeping their heads down.
Exactly. They calculate that as long as the problem isn't eating them, it isn't truly a problem. They mistake feeding the beast for controlling the beast.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. And it is entirely about self-preservation. Because look at who they decide to feed it.
Right, the victims.
To protect their own jobs and their own wealthy families, they don't draw straws among themselves. They go straight to the bottom of the social ladder.
Of course.
The sources detail how they start sourcing these victims from the families of slaves and convicted criminals.
The most marginalized.
The absolute lowest ranking, most defenseless people in their society. And they do this year after year. 9 girls are sacrificed over 9 years.
9 years.
9 human beings cost to the problem just to keep the spreadsheets balanced and the roads open.
The system stabilizes itself by consuming its most vulnerable elements.
Yeah.
For 9 years, the top tier stays safe, the bottom tier gets eaten, and the bureaucracy functions exactly as designed. The horror becomes completely normalized.
But then year 10 arrives.
Yeah.
And the system finally runs out of fuel.
They run out of scapegoats.
Exactly. August 1st is approaching, and the officials are panicking. They literally cannot find a 10th scapegoat. They've burned through the completely defenseless population, and now their own necks are on the line.
The deadline is looming.
They are staring down a missed deadline with a client who literally eats people.
Right.
And enter our protagonist, the desperate intern, Liji.
She is from Jangle County, and her background is critical to understanding her motivation here.
Yeah, so she is from a family with 6 daughters and 0 sons. And to understand this through the lens of ancient Chinese family economics, that was basically a slow-motion disaster.
It really was.
In that structure, a son stays with the family, works the land, and cares for the parents in their old age. A daughter eventually marries out of the family and requires a dowry.
So she's an expense.
Right. So Liji volunteers to be the 10th sacrifice. But here's where it gets really interesting, because her reasoning is brutally pragmatic.
Very cold logic.
She sits her parents down and essentially says, look, I am a girl, I cannot carry on the family name, and I don't have the power to save our family's fortune. Basically, by just being here, I am wasting rice.
She reduces her own existence to a pure cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah.
She internalizes the societal message that her life has a negative economic value.
It is a chilling conversation to read.
Yeah.
She tells them, if I sell myself to the government to be the snake's sacrifice, the magistrates will pay you a massive bounty. It will secure a pension for you to live on in your old age. In so many mythical texts, the hero steps up with this glowing aura of righteousness, giving a big speech about duty and honor and protecting the realm. Liji has none of that.
Not at all.
It is a cynical calculation from a completely disenfranchised worker. She looks at her parents and essentially says, I am worth more to you as a severance package.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, when leadership normalizes cowardice and refuses to protect its people, it creates an environment of total desperation at the bottom. The cowardice at the top of the hierarchy forces the absolute bottom of the ladder to take extreme do-or-die measures just to survive economically.
Right.
Liji isn't sacrificing herself out of patriotism. The system has made her life so economically untenable that monetizing her own execution is her only logical move.
Management completely failed to do their jobs, so she has to sell her life to cover their incompetence. But, and this is the best part, Liji isn't actually planning on being a martyr.
No, she is not.
She sold herself as the severance package, sure, but she is walking into those mountains to aggressively rectify the workplace.
I love that phrasing.
She demands 2 things from the local magistrates before she leaves. She wants a razor-sharp sword and a dog that is specifically trained to bite snakes.
Very practical tools.
Right. And the manager just hands them over, probably thrilled they don't have to go up there themselves. But Liji brings a 3rd item, a secret weapon she prepares all on her own.
She prepares a massive batch of sticky rice cakes, basically an ancient variation of mochi, and she mixes it with a heavy amount of roasted honey.
Okay, I have to admit, I found this detail completely baffling at first.
The dessert.
Yes, you have a giant mythical snake, and she brings dessert. She hauls this massive pile of sugar, the dog, and the sword up to the snake's cave on August 1st. She sets the honey mochi down at the entrance of the cave and hides. Night falls. The giant snake slithers out. Now, this beast is expecting a terrified teenager. Instead, it smells this intensely sweet, high-calorie treat.
It is a completely novel stimulus for an apex predator.
The snake absolutely loses its mind. It ignores everything else and just gorges itself on the honey mochi. It is literally inhaling sugar.
Right.
And while it's completely distracted, its blood sugar spiking and its guard entirely down, Li Ji strikes. She points at the snake and commands the hound, "Wong Kai, bite it."
Which is a great dog name, by the way.
It really is. So the dog lunges forward and locks its jaws onto the giant snake's head. The snake thrashes, but it's weighed down by the massive intake of carbs.
The sudden influx of heavy, sticky food renders the cold-blooded creature lethargic. Its mobility is severely compromised.
Which is the exact window Li Ji needs to sprint out from her hiding spot.
Yep.
She sneaks up behind the snake while the dog has it pinned and just starts frantically hacking at its neck with the razor-sharp sword. She is chopping away until the snake bleeds out, rolling around the courtyard in agony.
A brutal but effective tactic.
Within minutes, the decade-long threat, the unstoppable monster that paralyzed the entire regional government, is dead. She basically gave the problem a massive food coma before launching a hostile takeover.
Exactly.
But I want to dig into the methodology here for a second.
Yeah.
Because of all the things in a mythical text, why a high-calorie dessert? It feels incredibly mundane for a legendary battle.
Well, true problem-solving often lacks theatrical magic.
Right.
What Li Ji understood that the original magistrates did not is the nature of power dynamics. Bullies, tyrants, and institutional monsters project an aura of total invulnerability.
And they make themselves seem untouchable.
Exactly. The bureaucrats stared at the snake and saw an invincible force of nature because they were too terrified to actually analyze it. Li Ji looked at the snake and saw an animal. And animals have biological imperatives. They have mundane appetites and vulnerabilities.
Wow. Yeah, the management was so busy managing their own fear, they never bothered to ask basic questions like, hey, what else does this thing like to eat?
Right.
They assumed the problem required this massive military response. And since they didn't want to risk the military, they just did nothing.
They chose paralysis.
Exactly. By offering it something sweet and easily consumable, Li Ji bypassed its terrifying exterior and exploited a simple biological weakness.
She proved that the insurmountable crisis was ultimately just driven by greed and appetite.
So, the monster is dead. The crisis is averted. But the story delivers its sharpest, most cynical political critique right in the aftermath, the post-mortem of the crisis.
This is my favorite part.
It's so good. Li Ji walks into the back of the cave. She finds the 9 skulls of the previous girls who were sacrificed over the last 9 years. She looks at these bones, sighs, and says, "You were too cowardly. That's why you got eaten." So pitiful.
It sounds like a harsh judgment on the victims at first glance.
It sounds incredibly cold,
Yeah.
like blaming the interns for getting eaten.
Right.
But consider the context of who is going to hear this story.
Right.
Word of her actions spreads. The king of you, the absolute top of the food chain in this society, here's what she did.
The CEO, basically.
Yes, the CEO. He brings her to the capital, marries her, makes her his queen, and immediately gives her father and her sisters high-ranking government jobs.
A total structural realignment initiated from the very top.
So what does this all mean? When you put it all together, you realize the brilliant irony of what Li Ji said in that cave. She's looking at the skulls, but the indictment is meant entirely for the magistrates.
She is nominally speaking to the dead, but she is actively prosecuting the local government.
She is publicly slapping the face of the commanders, the guys with the actual armed guards who sat in their offices and let children die because they were too afraid to try. She, a 12-year-old girl with zero resources, solved a 10-year systemic crisis in a single evening with a dog and some baked goods.
It's quite the resume builder.
It really is. She exposed their absolute uselessness to the entire kingdom.
This raises an important question about the function of hierarchy.
Yeah.
The local management hid behind protocol. They used the annual sacrifice as a...
It is a massive indictment of the people ostensibly in charge. Which I think brings us to the ultimate takeaway for anyone listening to this deep dive right now.
Let's hear it.
We started off talking about how this 4th century text perfectly mirrors modern institutional dysfunction. When the people in charge collectively slack off, when they disguise their own cowardice as keeping the peace, and when they use the lowest people on the ladder as their human shields,
Right.
hoping for the universe or upper management to suddenly intervene and save you is a complete waste of time.
A bureaucratic system is designed primarily to protect itself.
Yeah.
It is not designed to protect the individual at the bottom. If you wait for the magistrates to suddenly grow a spine, you will simply become the next skull in the cave.
You have to take ownership of the chaos.
Yeah.
You have to bring your own dog, you have to sharpen your own sword, you have to bake your own mochi.
Beautifully said.
You have to be willing to walk right up to the thing everyone else is terrified of and figure out its mundane weakness.
Choosing not to act is simply agreeing to the terms of your own consumption.
Damn. Yeah. Let's leave you with this final thought. We've talked a lot about finding your own solution, about walking into the cave and dealing with the snake yourself, because the system won't. But think about the day after. Let's say you bake the mochi. You kill the snake, you survive. You didn't just solve the problem, you just publicly exposed the sheer, embarrassing incompetence of every single middle manager who sat on their hands for a decade.
Right.
By stepping up and proving that the monster could be beaten with a dog and some dessert, you have instantly humiliated the people in charge. So when the snake is dead, and those same cowards are still sitting in their offices signing your performance reviews, who is the real monster you have to deal with next?